what is the definition and detailing about leadership, about women quality, great leadership. So please you describe in a very broad way. I want to go in a very deep way. We want to dig this topic today. So let's start.
Yeah, yeah, Raj, I'll start here. I believe there's really no doubt that as females we have a lot of qualities that make us great leaders, and you see that throughout our engagement in society as mothers, as community leaders, as oftentimes role models, or how we arrange our friends and the get-togethers, and how we have everything under control when it comes to like multitasking and keeping all the balls in the air. And in a way that is the same thing when you're on the corporate level, that you have you have emergencies coming in, you have projects going on, you have a team to manage, and oftentimes you have the double responsibilities, because you might also have that family life. And so a lot of the traits that we perceive perhaps as females, whether that is the multitasking, it's the sensitivities to different things, picking up things sometimes before they're even outspoken. I believe that those are all things that can really benefit us, whether we are in a corporate environment as a leader or we're in a personal environment. And Betska, I don't know if you agree with me on that, but I think as females, we are meant to take on leadership roles.
Oh my God, yes. And you know what? I love to see men and women together at the boardroom table. I love to see men and women together at the local city hall or whatever, right? That we are using the strengths of both men and women to be successful. And I've had that experience with, coaching leaders in 50 plus countries. And women have so many ideal traits. And I'd love to explore some of those traits with the two of you today, if that's okay. Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, the first trait that I love about women is that we are balanced thinkers. Now, I want to preface this by saying that there are female leaders at the bottom of the rung, and there are leaders all the way at the top. And I've coached people from the bottom all the way to the top, right? So what I'm expressing here in a moment is the ideal female leader. Right. So it'll be interesting to get Marion's opinion and her experience, right? Because she's got experience in different countries as well. So the first trait of an ideal female leader, whether it's in the home or whether it's in the community or out in the workplace, etc., is we are balanced thinkers. We can solve problems using both our left brain, our logical, analytical skills, and our right brain, innovative relationship skills. We can do that so quickly. Boom, boom, boom. That's the ideal female leader. They're not stuck in the analysis. They connect with their hearts. So they can do both. And I think this ability to be, we actually call it bilateral and pentalateral thinking. They can really bounce backwards, from their left brain to their right brain, back to their left brain, and so on and so forth. The number 2 trait of an ideal female leader is we seek harmony versus confrontation. That's the ideal. And I have seen, yesterday I was coaching this female leader, and she's amazing. This woman is amazing. She's an author and very progressive in her field. And she was charged with assault. She was charged with assault by her neighbor because the neighbor didn't like what she was doing, and so on and so forth. And from the way I could see the story, I don't think she should have been charged with assault, but I'm not a policeman. So But anyway, usually women like to seek harmony. You know, when we're raising our children, for example, and if they're fighting, do we let them fight, or do we get in there and try to resolve it and mediate and so on and so forth, right? And but I know, Marion, for example, you've got some other stories around women who seek
Yeah.
confrontation versus harmony. Is that right?
There certainly are examples, and sometimes, it makes you wonder how much of that within the development of a leader when you are early in your career versus like climbing that corporate ladder, how much of what we feel as female leaders, how we should be acting, how we have to measure up in certain ways. And that's mindset that's happening there. That is changing who we would be like deep in our hearts as a leader versus how we show up. But one thing that you brought up, Betska, which I'd like to tag on to because that really resonated with me, is that as females being natural troubleshooters. And have you ever found a woman who, when something goes down, doesn't know what to do? You don't find them. They know that troubleshooting. Most of them, most of us, I should say, we know what we need to do when somebody is arguing over here, or this goes down or that goes down. We have solutions, we come up with things, and we fix things. And so that kind of goes along that trait that you were describing there, which actually I saw a podcast the other day where a very famous female leader in the entertainment industry, she started her own production company because she said she was tired of looking at the films where there were women that didn't know what to do. And she said, have you ever met a woman that doesn't know what to do when in an urgent situation? It just doesn't happen. And it made me laugh. And I thought it's very true. We have an ability to address things, to troubleshoot things, and to know instinctly what we need to do.
Here's an example. I usually make the dinners around here. My husband does the shopping, right? And so I thought we had a lot of leftover pasta from the night before. And then when I opened the fridge, no, we didn't have enough pasta to make a nice dish for the two of us for dinner. So I got creative. This is troubleshooting here in the kitchen, right? Those same skills we can use in the corporate world and government and out in the community. So I thought, oh, okay, well, I've got lots of cauliflower. So I mixed the cauliflower in with the already cooked pasta. I added spinach and red pepper and tomatoes. And I made this, because we're vegan, I made this delicious cashew cream sauce. And my husband goes, wow, is this ever good?
It is getting creative.
Yeah.
And that's, to your point, you have that in you, and you can apply that in your personal life, and you can apply that in your corporate life, because at the end of the day, that's just the life that we all live. And it's the reality we all live in, that the times are getting faster and faster, and things are changing, and there is always an opportunity to get creative. But if we're not thinking in those terms, then it's easy to throw up the hands and say, well, not sure what to do with that. And so as that ideal leader, and I suppose that is female or male in this instance, it's about being agile and being creative and looking for solutions. If A doesn't work, let's try B. Let's figure out how we can get resourceful and find solutions with whatever we're dealing with. And so that's a great example. That's actually I have a similar one there too. And anybody that knows me knows that I am not exactly the greatest cook or enjoy cooking. But my children wanted to have hash browns with the eggs, and there were no hash browns. And so I started scraping down potatoes so I could make them myself. And again, whoever knows me would say, like, you did what? but I did, and they came out better than the frozen ones. And in that moment, I just had to get resourceful, and I suppose like jump over my own hurdles of my own limitations in the kitchen, I suppose.
We get inspired when we have problems, right? So
Yeah, and I was so proud.
yeah.
I was so proud that she was so happy with my potatoes, because that could have gone both ways.
So Marion, with your experience, I know again you've lived in Europe and so on, and I'm curious about your comments on my second trait of an ideal leader, which is we seek harmony versus confrontation.
Mhm,
And I see many women who will take the confrontation route, like my
mhm,
client yesterday who got charged with assault. Oh
mhm,
my gosh. Um, and then others who will go and solve it using harmony versus the confrontation. And
mhm,
I think harmony goes a long way. I mean, when we look at some of the wars on the planet, we shouldn't have those wars. Why do we have wars? Why are we busy killing people? That's absolutely stupid, right? And then we take that same violent concept and take it into the corporate world, and we say, I want the promotion, therefore I'm going to stomp on so and so. I'm going to push them down because I want the job, right?
mhm,
What's
mhm,
that about? Like
mhm,
that is
mhm.
such old school. In the new world, in this new golden age of leadership, we really need to learn how to help people grow, and to do it through harmony
Mhm,
versus confrontation. But
mhm,
tell
mhm,
me what your thoughts are
mhm.
on that.
Yeah, that's a big topic, Betska, and that is something that I am is very often on the table when I'm dealing with what I call emerging leaders or next generation leaders, because these two traits that you described, the confrontation and the harmony, those oftentimes are put into the gender buckets, right? The women are more about harmony and the men are more about confrontation. And your example of your client shows that that doesn't always have to be that way. And it certainly hasn't been that way necessarily in my experience. And oftentimes, because these young leaders or next generation leaders feel like they have to show up more masculine, because that's what they perceive,
Yes.
that's what they've been taught, that's how they feel. In order to measure up and really be respected, they have to show up in a more masculine way. And so in a way, what I am doing with them is reshaping that thinking, that yes, it should be about mutual respect. It should be communication or interaction overall needs to be in a way where neither one feels suppressed or feels pushed down or feels that I don't have a voice, because maybe you are in a position of power over them and they don't feel that they frankly can speak up. So the way that I believe we can look at that is that being comfortable with the fact that we might not always be in agreement, but we do that with a level of respect. And
Yes.
that's
Yes.
where some female traits come back in, with empathy, with kindness. And that requires, though, a certain level of confidence in who I am and what I bring to the table, so I can bring out these these traits, don't feel secure in my position, and at the same time look over to the person across the table and really listen and really understand where they're coming from and how we can solve, if there's an issue or if there's a challenge or whatnot, how can we come to a solution in a harmonious way, right? Without that confrontation, without that force of saying, but I am the boss and I'm telling you so, right? I mean, that is not a good approach. It has to be, it
Yeah.
has to be, and I always say, when your team starts being quiet, that's a problem. You want people to speak up. You want them to feel comfortable, again, in a respectful way, everybody with each other, but you want them to to have that conversation, and you want to address that not in a confrontational way, but in a way where actually you are aligned in your thinking, in your doing, and there's something effective coming out at the end of that conversation. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's about. You need to find a way to move forward. That has been my experience, and that, I believe, especially with this next generation, it's like that little alignment and that little tweak that changes so much.
Raj, I'd like to tell a story. It's a very telling story. Many years ago, I've owned my own company now for many years. But before that, I worked for international companies, and I was the only female at the senior level. And we had to go down to Atlanta, Georgia for a conference. And so we went, and we were taking all these workshops, and all of the senior leaders on our team sat around this table, and we did the DISC score, DISC, by Wiley, and it tells you, Raj, are you familiar with the DISC, DISC? It's a wonderful assessment profile that you can do that tells you what your exact behavior is as a leader, or as a wife, or a husband, or whatever, child too. Anybody can do it. So anyway, we were doing the DISC to find out what our behaviors are as a leader. And our results came back instantly. And I looked at my results, and I was in shock. My behaviors that came back said I was domineering, demanding, and forceful.
So you were a D.
I was a D, a high D, at the very top D, Marion, right? So
are you really surprised?
Well, I tell you, I turned to my colleagues, my male colleagues, and I said, is this me? Is this really me? I can't believe this is me. And you know what? They all nodded. I thought, no way. I said, this is not me. They nodded again. Well, I tell you, from that moment on, I made it my personal journey to change my behavior so that I am now a balanced leader. If someone attacks my family or attacks my daughter or whatever, the mother bear in me can come out still, right? I am going to defend them to the nth degree. However, I normally operate now in where I have lifted my I, which means I have become more influential, more charming, more sociable, more trusting, and so on and so forth. So my point to the story is that we can change our behavior. So I want to give the women and men out there listening to this podcast, if they're thinking, oh my God, I'm forceful, demanding, and I'm not a very nice person, you can change that. With our science of mind kinetics, and I'm sure Marion has got her skills, we can help you change that to become more of a balanced leader. Someone who can lead and take risks, take action, because that's what we need, but also someone who is kind and compassionate and influential and trusting. You see?
Yeah, it's the DISC is interesting, and I'm actually certified in the DISC assessments to give that, and I've had that for many years. That we did the DISC assessment with the teams that I managed, and also the executive team overall, and so many times when you get like, I am a DI, so I'm also very strong on the D, but every single one of these letters, I suppose, you can utilize that as a strength. And instead of being domineering, you can bring that out in a way where you're decisive. You are, not afraid to make a decision or to change something. And so I believe when you're looking at the strong suit of whatever is in your DNA, and focusing in on those positive traits that come with that is where your inner power lies. And so understanding when you are leading a team, how do they operate? Because, for example, me personally, I'm also a D as I am very direct, and not everybody is dealing with that necessarily well. So I've learned to, depending on who I have across from me, some people will get my very direct way, and the German, certainly amplifies that. And some other people that I know are maybe more on the sensitive side, or I need to approach differently, I'm changing my communication style, because I feel that that is more effective to get that person to open up, and for us, again, to look at that solution. And that is a nuance that I used to not necessarily see or know how to do, that has come over the course of all of this growth and all of this learning and these experiences, to understand, even when we have one dominating factor, right, as who we are, that doesn't mean that that has to come through in everything that we do. And when you're looking at it from even a peer perspective, and I had one experience where every single person on the executive team was a D. So can you imagine what that looked like?
Oh, fireworks.
So exactly. And so here we were, like, doing this amazing work of figuring out what our letters were, right? Even before we were hiring people. And then here we are, like almost all of us with a high D. I mean, that just cannot work well.
Right,
It
yeah,
just cannot, because you have a lot of A-type personalities that everybody in a way very naturally is trying to move things, and not always in the same direction. And so the learning in this is that for one, utilizing these types of assessments and tools, and then actually applying them, so you can have a win-win situation, and adjusting your communication depending on who you have. And then you really have a tool that can benefit you in that growth and in that development.